Hello, everyone. My name is Cassidy, and I'm 20. I bet it won't surprise anybody if I say that my relationship with my boyfriend's mother was complicated from the very beginning. This happens quite often, right? But what if I tell you that once she drove me so crazy I almost killed her? Jaden and I met each other a little more than a year ago at one of these fashion art parties. He was with his girlfriend, but we kept locking eyes with each other the whole night. At some point, we accidentally met in front of one of the pictures and chatted for a second. And when I mentioned that I was a beginner artist, he got interested in my work, so I gave him the address of my studio apartment. And, long story short, he moved in with me, apparently having left his girlfriend before that. For almost a year, our life together was great until he started saying that his poor mom, who was back home in England and who he hasn't seen for a long time, was missing him badly. I'd heard many nice things from Jaden about his mom, and I sorta already loved her and wanted to meet her. Besides, meeting parents usually means tra-la-la-la, an impending wedding. So I somehow said that she should stay with us to avoid spending extra on a hotel, and that made Jaden walk on air. As soon as Mrs. Evans took her first step inside our apartment, she began critiquing virtually every inch of it. She didn't like the couch that we bought especially for her, nor did she like the window drapes, which, according to her, should have been more transparent to let the sunlight in. But what's worse is that she didn't like me. She said that I was wearing odd and outdated clothing and was so happy that she brought me a sweatsuit as a gift that she insisted on me trying it on right away. Of course, I wanted to be polite, even though I didn't like the color or the fabric, and when I tried it on, it turned out to be a little bit tight for me. But what Mrs. Evans said was that if I lost a couple of pounds, it'd be perfect. I said nothing and only smiled back at her, but I couldn't help but notice that she definitely considered me chubby. Moreover, she, let's say, didn't support the fact that Jaden and I lived together outside of marriage. So, from time to time, I heard her making certain remarks about my morality. At the same time, she herself, having lost her husband several years ago, still remained faithful to him, which made her almost a saint in Jaden's opinion. It seemed to me that if she had a man, she wouldn't have been so mean, but clearly I couldn't share my thoughts with anyone. Oh, I also had a gift for her, by the way. A portrait of Jaden and I that I painted myself. Do you think she liked it? I doubt that, 'cause she didn't say anything, but thank you, while looking at my picture as if something offensive or disgusting was depicted there. Soon after all the formalities of the gift exchange were met, she went to unpack her things with Jaden while I started making dinner. Oh, I swear this could be a separate story to tell all by itself. She found flaws in virtually every dish that I cooked and snatched every opportunity to talk about them out loud. Honey, you should never put beans in this salad. Oh, and please, use less salt. All of her comments totally freaked me out, but of course I couldn't say anything. I really wanted Mrs. Evans to like me, 'cause, judging upon what Jaden told me about her, or rather how he was always talking about his mother, he loved her more than anything in the world, and I loved him. Although I must say that it was a bit offensive that he didn't stand up for me, even though he had heard everything that she was unsatisfied with. After a week of this life full of his mom's opinion, he came up with a sudden decision to send the two of us to a fancy restaurant to get to know each other better. Even before we got the appetizers, Jaden's mom decided to seize the bull by the horns. That's when she finally told me how much I didn't fit into their family. According to her, everything about me, starting from the way I looked and behaved to the way I decorated my house, was a mess. Even that picture of mine that I gave to her was, quotes opened, a purely tasteless and frivolous piece of something that could hardly be called art. End quote. And she was saying all of these things in a calm voice with a disgusting smile on her lips, which made me feel a desire to punch her in the face. And then she left the table, as if nothing special had happened, and went to the ladies' room, while I was just sitting there with the feeling that I'd been dragged through the mud. In theory, I should probably stand up and leave, but I don't know. It was as if something rooted me to that spot. I had so much to say to her, but I was so afraid to lose Jaden. When I was thinking over how to better react to Mrs. Evans once she got back to the table, a waiter came up with a signature salad and said something about the pomegranate dressing that they put on it. A barely distinctive thought flashed through my mind for a split second. Jaden mentioned in passing that his mother was allergic to pomegranates. But I was still under the effect of her latest words about me, so I don't know why, but I didn't say anything to the waiter. At about the same moment, Mrs. Evans reappeared at the table, and just as if nothing had happened earlier, she began eating that salad, saying that the restaurant, which I actually chose, was awful, and that the salad was too bitter, and stuff like that. I was just sitting there, imagining how she would soon be covered with a rash and start itching and scratching, not having a clue about that pomegranate dressing, and this was supposed to be my little revenge on her. But what happened in the next couple of minutes was the most horrible thing I've ever experienced. Mrs. Evans began choking and fell to the floor, pulling the tablecloth from the table with her. I got so scared, and I had a single thought in my head. What have I done? Other people in the restaurant immediately surrounded us. Someone shouted that they were already calling 911, and one man began trying to give her CPR. In that same second, my mind seemed to have returned from somewhere far away. I rushed to her purse because I knew that she always carried some kind of special injection with her, just in case. All this turmoil took place in just a couple of minutes, but it seemed to me that an eternity had passed. We were already in the ambulance on our way to the hospital when I was dialing Jaden's number with my trembling fingers. It was awful that I had to tell him about that horrible accident. But what's even more awful was that it was me who actually knew about that dangerous ingredient in the salad and who decided to just not mention it. And this was torturing me. Oh my gosh, I almost killed his mom. He arrived just as soon as he could, and I was waiting for him together with Mrs. Evans in a hospital room. She was sleeping. Or maybe she preferred pretending to sleep so that she didn't have to communicate with me. But right when Jaden entered the room, she woke up and began sobbing and saying how she was afraid that she had almost died. That made Jaden even more worried than he already was. I must confess, I couldn't find the strength to tell him the truth, and I decided to blame the poor waiter for everything and pretended that he didn't tell me about that dressing in the salad. Jaden got so angry with him, but I somehow convinced him to not go down to the restaurant, to not arrange some kind of drama down there. Thank God his mother was discharged on the same day, and judging by the way she behaved at home at dinner, not only did her appetite return to her suspiciously fast, but also her immense hostility towards me. During the whole week after the accident, she demanded that we bring her anything she wanted, 'cause she claimed that it was hard for her to leave the bed. Strangely enough, she needed something badly right when Jaden and I were planning to spend some romantic time together. Turned out to be a million times worse to take care of his mom when she was sick, even though I was sure that she was just pretending to feel that way. I once tried to talk with Jaden and ask him when exactly she was going to get back to her life in England, but that really made him angry. What a fine kettle of fish. But one day, fate gave me the chance to win the battle with Jaden's mom. Once I returned home from the market and heard her talking on her cell phone. At first I decided that it was Jaden on the phone with her, but soon I realized the conversation was a more loving nature. Aha! She was on the phone with a man, and this was going to become my joker, I thought. After all, Jaden was sure that after the death of his father, Mrs. Evans led a righteous lifestyle. Oh, if he had known about her boyfriend, this would have broken his heart, but at the same time would have made him cruelly disappointed in his almost saint-like mommy. Oh, you should have seen how her jaw dropped as soon as she saw me staring at her. I guess she didn't even manage to end her conversation, 'cause she put the phone down really quickly. She looked angry and confused at the same time, and she seemed to be trying to decide how to behave with me going forward. Meanwhile, I just stood there and looked at her, smiling, since I was already pretty sure that her attitude toward me was going to change in a positive manner. That same evening, we had dinner, and unlike our normal nights, The only thing she said about it was that everything was tasty. There was one stressful moment, though, for her, I mean, when Jaden asked what was new during the day. Mrs. Evans tensed and gazed at me as if she was begging me to not tell Jaden anything. I was not going to do it anyway, but that sweet feeling of superiority once again filled me from the inside. The next day, Mrs. Evans bought herself a ticket back to England. She convinced Jaden that she already felt much better after that allergy incident. She and I never discussed that phone call. I guess both of us understood each other without any words. Maybe we are not as different as I thought we were.